Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 8. Is it Week 8? Yeah. Week 8 recap. Oh, let's see what happened this week. No big injuries to talk about, I think. We had some really good matchups come down to the wire there on Monday night, including a really close matchup. The matchup literally nobody was talking about on the line app, which ended up being as close as it can possibly get without being a tie. Keep an eye out for stat corrections here this week to see if anything changes. But yeah, everybody was hyping on the lineup, going back and forth about the matchup between Hillbillies on PCP and New Gods Mad Titans. Meanwhile, no one seemed to be paying attention to the fact that Disco and Possum Magic were battling here. I think Possum just had Alex Smith and needed about 30 points to catch up. And well, let's just say he fell just short. All right. Let's just get right into it. Keep this as short and sweet as we can. First matchup, as always, the defending champ, Gags to Riches, going up against the first place team, and that's never a good recipe for victory, and it does not work again here. I think a lot of bye week blues for Gags to Riches this week, and he drops this one to the Shawshank Athletics, 171.35 to 123.35. For Shawshank, Tom Brady, 56, Kelvin Benjamin, 13, DeAndre Hopkins, almost 40 points, 39.5. He only needed one more yard to get you the +5 bonus. He had 224, and the +5 bonus is 225. Not that you needed it, but you'll take that. Kenny Stills, 11.5. Jay Ajayi, let's see, 2.5. Brida from the 49ers. Let's see. I'm not seeing any of his rushing stats here on Yahoo, but I see he did have a touchdown. So he must have had based on the numbers, he must have had about 20 yards and a touchdown. So about 8 points. Ryan Griffin, your tight end from Houston. Must be a tough spot there for you at tight end. Only 2 points. Chris Thompson in your flex. Let's see, 15.5. Your kicker from Chiefs, Butker, hardly know her. Yahoo says 20, so it was a little bit more than that. And you went with the Oakland Raiders defense. I guess, yeah, because Jacksonville was on a bye this week. And Yahoo says 0. I'm trying to remember. It might have been maybe 3 or 0, something like that. I can't remember for sure if you got some points for the rushing yards or not, if there was enough to get. I'm pretty sure maybe it was 0, because you were down, I want to say you were down to -3, and rushing yards at least brought you back to 0 there instead of getting a negative score there. Let's see. As for Gags to Riches, let's see. Drew Brees, 37, almost 38 points. Your 3 receivers, Dez Bryant, Taylor Gabriel, and Mike Williams from the Chargers there. Let's see. Dez, 8. Gabriel 1 catch for negative yards, so he actually got you less than 1 point. And Williams only had 1 catch for 7, so 1.7 there. So it looks like you got about 10 points from your 3 receivers. You had Doug Martin and Eddie Lacy. Be a good combo if it was 5 years ago. Doug Martin looks like 7 points. Eddie Lacy, 0. Travis Kelce, one of the only bright spots here on your team this year, 26.5 points. You played Terrence Williams in the flex, 5.5. Tucker, your kicker, 12. And the Patriots defense looks like they might be finally coming around here for you. Maybe too little too late, but Yahoo says 15. I think it was closer to 25, something like that. A lot of the defenses this week, for some reason, I made a mental note. It was always +9 to whatever Yahoo said. +9, +9. There were a lot of +9s. So I'm going to assume that New England's defense might have been 24. But anyway, said it was still a 50-point margin of victory here in favor of Shawshank Athletics. He is all by himself in first place, 7-1. So you have all but clinched a playoff spot. Well, you've definitely clinched a winning record. So 7 wins. You're in, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Gags to riches. You are now 2-6, but you are not quite at the bottom. You are in 11th place. Next up, we have the Bad Luck Bears, the formerly Everybody Ertz, going up against the Skellahort Isotopes. And Bad Luck Bears take this one down. Final score, 182.15 to 163.65. For Bad Luck Bears, he went with Josh McCown at quarterback. Got about 46.5 points, almost 47. 3 receivers, Deshaun Jackson, Julio Jones, and Will Fuller. Jackson, 6.5, Jones, 10.5, and Fuller, 29.5. 2 touchdowns there for him. Frank Gore, 80 yards. Devontae Freeman, 4 points, 40 yards. Jimmy Graham, only 4 catches, but 2 of them were touchdowns, so just under 20 there. Mohamed Sanu in the flex, 19.5 points from him. He had a touchdown. This game was heavily reliant on the Jets-Falcons, as we had McCown, Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman, and Mohamed Sanu. And then the Texans-Seattle game where you had Fuller versus Seattle. So pretty much almost your entire lineup. Oh, and Jimmy Graham. So those 2 games was everybody except for Deshaun Jackson, Frank Gore, and your kicker, Elliott. Elliott, looks like he had about 8-9 points there. And Seattle defense, even though there was a ton of yardage given up, they had a long touchdown, several turnovers, bunch of sacks, got you a lot of points. Yahoo says 20. I believe it was actually 26. As for the Isotopes, Derek Carr, quarterback, 47.5 points, 3 receivers, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and Marvin Jones. 2.5 for Hill, 6.5 for Diggs, and almost just under 19 for Marvin Jones. Tevin Coleman and Jonathan Stewart at running back. Looks like Coleman had 8.2, while Stewart had 9.4. Gronk at tight end, 16.5. Jordan Reed at the flex spot here went out with an injury after only 1 catch for 5 yards. Kicker was Prater from Detroit. He had, I think, 4 field goals, 4 or 5. And yeah, he must have had 5 because all of Detroit's points came from field goals there. Yahoo says 17. I actually think it was 19 even, if I remember correctly. And then Kansas City Chiefs defense, Yahoo says 30. They had a couple turnovers, a touchdown. Did okay. I believe the total was actually 33. So pretty decent score there. But in a 19-point margin of victory here. The 2 from Tyreek Hill, the 6.5 from Diggs, and of course Jordan Reed, only 1.5 there. Really hurt. As for there was Paul Richardson should have been played. Would have had the points there on the bench there. He had 28.5 points. Would have gone with him, but Jordan Reed usually plays pretty well against the Cowboys there. Was expecting more from him. Probably should have taken the weather into consideration a little bit more than I did, but anyway, it is what it is, and it is a loss, and I'm sure the only person who is disappointed about this is me. So I will stop talking about it. Bad Luck Bears, he is now even at 4-4, muddled with a whole bunch of other people. He is in 5th place, while the Isotopes join Gags to Riches at 2-6 and down in 10th place. Next up, one of the great matchups we had on Monday night. Hillbillies on PCP versus New Gods Mad Titans. This one was actually, let me check my notes. Hillbillies on PCP was winning by 0.15 going into Monday night, and he had Demarius Thomas, while New Gods had CJ Anderson. And Thomas ended up with 11.5, while Anderson was only able to get almost just under 8. So that was enough to squeak out a victory there for Hillbillies on PCP. Final score was 174 even to 170.05. For Hillbillies, Phillip Rivers, only 28.5 at quarterback there. Antonio Brown, 12. Demarius Thomas, 11.5. And then Adam Thielen, just under 21. So pretty good there. LaShawn McCoy, still, I'm going to sigh every time I look at that LaShawn McCoy in your lineup there and think that he should probably still be with Possum Magic, or at least Hillbillies should have given up a little bit more there. Every week I'm gonna talk about that, and just maybe I won't talk about it. I'll just say LaShawn McCoy, or either before or after saying his name there. But anyway, he had 150 yards and a touchdown. So that would be, 24 points. Jordan Howard, he was just over 100 yards. So 13 points there. Jack Doyle, you played him this week because you didn't have Delaney Walker on his bye. And what a perfect week to play him, because he scored 30 points for you. 12 catches, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Twice as many as his highest previous point total this year. Let's see. And McCaffrey, always in the flex there. Just a little bit over 10 this week. Your kicker was Lutz from New Orleans, 10 points. And then you went with the Detroit Lions against the Steelers over the Denver Broncos defense there. I actually haven't figured out what the Denver defense score was. I wonder if you had played Denver, if that would have changed the outcome of this matchup or not. I'll have to look into that and maybe mention it on the Line app. Anyway, so you went with Detroit. Yahoo says 12. They had a couple turnovers. Didn't give up a whole lot of points. I know they gave up a ton of passing yards. And for rushing yards, I think they weren't. They still got you maybe 3 there. So it was probably about 12 to 15, probably something in there, or 18. Anyway, New Gods Mad Titans, he had Carson Wentz at his quarterback, only 36 and a quarter, I should say. Your receivers, Crabtree, Ginn, and Smith-Schuster. Crabtree, 13.5, Ginn, 8.5. And then, of course, Smith-Schuster went off for almost 200 yards, thanks to a 97-yard touchdown. So he had about 38.5 points, it looks like. And then speaking of long touchdowns, you also had Melvin Gordon, who ran for an 87-yard touchdown. So you got 2 long touchdown bonuses this week. Usually, I think Brian's the one who tends to get a lot of those long touchdown bonuses for some reason. But they went against him this week. Fortunately for you, it didn't work. It didn't work out in New God's favor there. Gordon, he ended up with 130 yards and a touchdown, plus the long touchdown bonus there. So he would have gotten you about 25, I think. And then CJ Anderson, like I said, he was at 7.8. Not enough to get squeak out a win there for New Gods Mad Titans, even though the Broncos, I think, did score a late rushing touchdown there towards the end of that game, but it was Devontae Booker who got it instead of C.J. Anderson. Then Jason Witten, your tight end, just over 6. Le'Veon Bell in the flex, just over 14. Boswell, the Steelers kicker, a little bit, about 9 points there. And then Houston defense in a big blowout loss there, shootout, maybe not a blowout loss because it was really close, back and forth there. Probably pretty surprising result all around in that matchup, especially going to Seattle. That's a tough place to play, and they were toe-to-toe, back and forth. Looks like they had 1 turnover and a couple of sacks, but they lost and gave up yards all over the place. Yahoo says 5. I think it was right around there. Just a quick mention of the Texans and Seattle game. I think I was watching I think the Redskins and Cowboys game because that was on TV. So I put on, I think I said this last week about Carson. Was it last week when Carson Palmer broke his arm? But anyway, as soon as I decide, I'm going to put on the NFL Sunday ticket and watch that game too, the Texans and Seattle, because Jay has some people in this matchup, and I'd be interested to see what happens here. And I think the first 5 minutes, they threw that bomb touchdown to Will Fuller, and then immediately turned around. Houston got the ball again and threw an interception right to, was it Earl Thomas? And he took it back for a 78-yard touchdown. So that was so you got a long touchdown there, almost a long touchdown to Fuller. So after about 5 minutes, I said, I can't watch this game anymore. We're 5 minutes in, and Jay already has 2 long touchdowns. That's enough for me. And shut it off. And of course, it only would have gotten worse because Jimmy Graham scored 2 touchdowns, and like I said, Richardson 2 touchdowns, but on my bench. Anyway, New Gods Mad Titans, Hillbillies on PCP. Brian, you are in second place now. You're 6-2. New Gods Mad Titans, you're muddled up there with your brother and a couple other people at 4-4 in 6th place. Next matchup, Mighty Midgets versus friggin' Laser Sharks in a matchup that the Laser Sharks really needed to stay on pace with all those other 4-4s. But it was not to be this week, as Mighty Midgets get their second victory of the season. Final score 145.6 to 97.7. Under 100. Trying to think if that happened before this year or not. I want to say that it did, and I can't remember if it was Gags or Tree Size that was under 100 at some point here. Looking back at all my notes, blah, 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 bear with me. Tree Size had 91.2 in week number 2. So that would be it there. So at least, Kevin, you didn't get the lowest score of the year, but you were pretty close. All right, enough of that. Mighty Midgets, Cam Newton, just over 31. Brandon Cooks, Devin Funchess, and Robbie Anderson. Cooks, 7.5. Funchess, just over 3. Maybe he's going to be much more featured in the offense here going forward with the surprise trade of Kelvin Benjamin. Not sure what that was about. A lot of crazy trades in the NFL here at the trade deadline. Let's see, which is very unusual, I think, compared to most years. It's usually pretty quiet. This year was kind of ridiculously crazy. In terms of last-minute trading, then, let's see, you said Robbie Anderson. He actually had 22.5 points. Your running backs, Abdullah and Foreman. Looks like Foreman got 0, and Abdullah got you 2.5. Tight end was Kyle Rudolph, 14.5. Kamara in the flex, 16.5. Got a touchdown for you there. Kicker, Bryant from Atlanta. Looks like he had at least 4 field goals, 12 points, maybe a little bit more than that. And then went with the Buffalo Bills defense. They had a defensive touchdown, couple turnovers. Yahoo says 24. I want to say this is one of those 9-point plus nines there, so it was probably about 31, something like that. As for Laser Sharks, the Jameis Winston to Mike Evans connection has not been working out too well for you. Back and forth week to week here. I can't say it hasn't been working out for you because I know that there have been weeks where I have called you out and said, hey, if you had played the quarterback that you traded for, which was Winston, you would have won. This week, it didn't matter. You would have, I think because Drew Brees didn't actually do that well either, huh? What did I say Drew Brees had? Should I go back and look, or does no one really care? It was 37.5, so not much of a difference there. Only a 12-point difference. That would not have made a big... And I think Des Bryant actually scored less than Mike Evans here. But all right, enough of that. Jameis Winston, 28.5. Mike Evans, 11 even. Nelson Aguilar, 5.5. And you got a 0 there from Willie Snead. Your running backs, Isaiah Crowell, looks like 12.5, and Wendell Smallwood, a half of a point. Zach Ertz, your tight end, 13.5. Ingram in the flex, just under 18. Your kicker, Fairbairn from Houston. A bunch of PATs, but only one field goal. Yahoo says 8. And then you dropped the Arizona defense, and you went with Miami this week, who got destroyed by Baltimore, 40-0. Yahoo says 3. I think that was correct, thanks to a blocked kick, and I think Miami kept them under in rushing yards, or something, at least something like that. You might have said it was either 3 or 6, something like that for the Miami defense. But anyway, too many low scores there. It's just 25 from your quarterback. Only a couple less than 30 combined from your quarterback and your defense. Never going to do well. You got a 0. You got a half point in there. Not too much. So pretty easy victory this week for Mighty Midgets. Finally something going his way. He is, although I guess it only goes so far because Mighty Midgets, you are 2-6, but you are in 12th place. Friggin' Laser Sharks, you dropped to 3-5 instead of moving up to 4-4 with a bunch of other people, and you are in 9th place. Next up, we have FC Bahoric versus Space Antelope. Battle of Cougars. And this one goes to FC Bahoric. 144.7 to only 113.05. For FC Bahoric, he had Matt Ryan pretty much penciling him in every week for about 36.5, which is what he had this week. AJ Green, about 11.5. Keenan Allen, just over 10. And newly acquired Alshon Jeffrey there had a 50-some yard touchdown. Looks like he got you just over 16 points this week. Your running backs, LeGarrette Blount and Dion Lewis. Looks like Blount had a touchdown and about 50 yards, so 11 points there. And Lewis looks like 4.5 points. Also newly acquired tight end, Cameron Brate, 10.5 points there. In the flex, of course, Kareem Hunt, every week play, although one of his lower outputs of the season so far, only 9.8. Kicker, Hauschka from Buffalo. Couple field goals, handful of PATs. Yahoo says 11. And then you went with the Saints defense against Chicago. Couple turnovers, couple sacks, not too many points allowed. Yahoo says 11. It was probably right around 20, 23, somewhere in that ballpark. As for Space Antelope, Kirk Cousins, 38.5. T.Y. Hilton, 3.5. Doug Baldwin, 11.5. And Danny Amendola, 3.5. Everything's a half here. Latavius Murray and Jalen Richard, your running backs. Looks like Murray just under 4. and Richard just over 2. Safarian Jenkins was your tight end, just under 8. Joe Mixon in the flex, just under 12. And your kicker, Randy Bullock from Cincinnati. Looks like a couple field goals, a couple PATs. He must have missed something there because Yahoo says only 4. And then you also had the Bengals, 3 Bengals in a row. Mixon, Bullock, and their defense. Looks like they had a defensive touchdown, a couple turnovers, 4 sacks. Yahoo says 19. I think it was a little bit more than that, probably somewhere in the mid. Actually, I think it might have been about 30, somewhere around there. But unfortunately, like I said, Hilton 3, Amendola 3, Murray 4, Richard 2, Jenkins 8. A lot of single-digit numbers there. That's not going to get you a win. Cousins had kind of a down week for him, although he did do better than Matt Ryan slightly. And a fairly good defensive total there. But not enough here this week. Only 113, about 30-point margin of victory there. FC Bahorik, he avoids being 4-4. He moves up to 5-3. He is in 3rd place, while Space Antelope drops to 5-3, right below FC Bahorik in 4th place. And one last matchup to talk about. And I wanted to do something here about this matchup, and I left my phone in the other room. So if you will give me 1 second, let me run and get it. Alright, sorry. I should have been thinking ahead about this here. Let me see. I gotta go back here and find it. Let's see. Alright, bear with me. I'm sorry. I'm getting to it. Okay, our last matchup is Possum Magic versus, let's see. Why do I continue to punish myself in this manner? I ask myself, Brandon, are you having fun on Sundays? Then answer myself, whilst begging for a stupid miracle lob to one of my bum players, fuck no. Why don't we just get together and roll some dice? Stupid, cocksucking luck game I can't win at. Thank God my kids aren't home to see this. And when it's 33-7, do you really have to chalk gold out for a 50-yarder? Fuck you very much. And Gostowski, I know you got double digis, but why you no make those 2 40-yarders? Fuck you. And why did I spend my 10 hard-earned dollars on a TB tight end? Cameron Brate is a well-known disco cockblocker, starting with scalping my 1-yard touchdowns when I had Jaquiz last year. Fuck you, Cameron Brate. And I see you, Lamar Miller. Fuck you too. And Jerick McKinnon, why would you do this to me? I believed in you when nobody else did, and gave you a home. And this is how you repay me? Go fuck yourself the hardest, Jerick, because whilst those other fantasies today hurt, they didn't hurt my heart the way you did. Fuck you. And, okay, that was it. AKA Disco. And this one, final score in favor of Disco. So why does he play the game and always lose? I don't know. But a little bit of a premature rant on Sunday afternoon when you still had guys playing Sunday night and I don't know, Monday. Your matchup was far from decided and said we're going to have to keep a close eye on this matchup with the stat corrections. Never know what happens there. It's usually not too much, but I said this was the matchup nobody was talking about on Monday night because Disco was up by, let me see, about 29 and a half. So that, yeah, that's all. And the only thing Possum had left was his quarterback, excuse me, Alex Smith. So you only needed basically 30 points from your quarterback. And Alex Smith, let's take a quick look at his game log. He has not been under 30 all season long until last night. Final score, Disco 147.55 to Possum Magic 147.50. So a .05 margin of victory. I think Alex Smith there, he lost a fumble. Well, really anything goes different in this matchup. Dante Moncrief doesn't get 0. Chris Hogan doesn't get hurt. All sorts of things that could have happened to change the outcome here. But other than, I'm sure you guys did not enjoy watching this, but it was definitely interesting to see for everybody else who was paying attention. For Disco, Matthew Stafford, the biggest difference here for Hugh was, let's see, just over 54 points from Stafford. I'm not sure he had any touchdowns. Yeah, because all they had were field goals. But he had over 400 yards, but no touchdowns. Your receivers, Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, and Jarvis Landry. Thomas, 14.5. Cooper, just over 10. He had some rushing yards there, so it was actually just under 10. And Jarvis Landry, about 8.5. Running backs, Carlos Hyde, 2.5. Marlon Mack, he got you a receiving touchdown. Not sure what his rushing stats were there. Must have been about, said Yahoo is only showing his receiving stats. Must have been about 30 yards, something like that, 25 or 30. You picked up and played O.J. Howard, right? Playing his points from last week, hoping for that, but it was not to happen this week. Only 3.5. James White in the flex, 13.5. Gostowski, your kicker, previously mentioned in the rant. Looks like he actually had 4 total field goals. Yahoo says 10. Probably it was a little bit more than that. And Pittsburgh defense, Yahoo says 11. I want to say it was 20. Maybe. So again, there are so many +9s, so it was probably a safe assumption that they scored about 20. As for Possum Magic, said Alex Smith you needed 29.5, and you only got 29.4. Your receivers, Jermaine Kearse, Chris Hogan, and Moncrief. Kearse, 3.5. Hogan, 11. And he is now out with he's going to be out for a while with an injury. And let's say Dante Moncrief said already he got 0. Ezekiel Elliott, the now currently temporarily maybe suspended Ezekiel Elliott again. 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, fumble lost. So he had about 29 points there for you. Let's see. Lamar Miller, the other running back, looks like he scored 2 touchdowns and had 55 rushing yards, so he got you about 17.5. Hunter Henry, tight end, a little bit over 3. Jerick McKinnon in the flex, just over 26. Bunch of catches and a touchdown for him. Pretty good day there against Cleveland. Kicker, Robbie Gould. I previously mentioned he was trotted out for a 50-yard field goal, which actually gave him an even 5 points because he missed a field goal but made one PAT. So that balanced each other out there. And then you had the Vikings defense going against Cleveland in London. And Yahoo says 15. I think it was pretty good amount more than that. It's probably close to 30. Can never really remember exactly, but I went over the numbers. think, at least 2 or 3 times. Keep an eye on it just to see what happens, if anything, especially when you have a matchup real as close as that. But as far as I can tell, the Disco gets the win here over Possum Magic by, I said, 0.05, which is technically half of a yard, half of a receiving yard, half of a half of a rushing yard. And both of you guys are now 4-4. Disco, you're in 7th place, while Possum Magic, you are just below in 8th place now. So both out of the playoffs, but knocking on the door, tied with a bunch of people there. Take a quick look at the standings. So we got the Bad Luck Bears, the Huber brothers are 4-4, and Disco and Possum are both 4-4. So we got 4 guys there. Kevin, with that loss, fell out of the group. You probably would have liked to get a win there. You're 3-5, but you're right behind them. And then we got the 3, 2, and 6s, the Isotopes, Gags to Riches, and Mighty Midgets. They pretty much are all but gone for the season. Those 3 teams all have to win the rest of their games. I'm not sure if did Gags and Mighty Midgets already play each other or not. Yes, they did. So they won't be playing each other. So all 3 teams have a possibility of winning out their schedule. However unlikely that may be. But as like I said, Shawshank, he's got 7 wins. He's in 1st place. He is essentially in the playoffs no matter what. And Hillbillies, you really only need 1 more win to guarantee yourself a playoff spot with, 5 weeks left to go there. So you're basically in. I think I said this last week. So that's basically 2 of the 6 playoff spots already clinched, leaving it wide open there for FC Bahorik. Basically all the way from FC Bahorik at 3rd to the Laser Sharks at 9 there. It's still pretty wide open for all of you, although some people are sinking, some people are rising, and some people are just not going, can't seem to go anywhere this year. So the knockout pool this week was the Dub C Hooligans, friggin' Laser Sharks, I should say, which leaves the only teams remaining in the knockout pool are FC Bahorik, Space Antelope, Hillbillies on PCP, and Bad Luck Bears. So just the 4 of you. The 2 podcasters, Brian and Detling, Justin and Jay. So good luck to the 4 of you there. Let's see. Take a quick look at what we got coming up here in week 9. We got the Isotopes versus Possum Magic. Possum Magic trying to get that one to stay afloat here. He's 4-4, but he's got a lot of bye week issues coming up this week. So Isotopes maybe try and play spoiler to his season. We've got New Gods Mad Titans versus FC Bahorik. That should be a good one, as New Gods tries to get win number 5, and FC tries to get win number 6, which would get him 1 step closer to the playoffs. So that's an important matchup for both of those teams. So New Gods, you don't want to drop below 500 right now. We got the Bad Luck Bears versus Shawshank. Heavily projected in favor of Bad Luck Bears right now. So I'll have to wait and see. I think Shawshank doesn't have Tom Brady this week. So he can probably afford to lose a matchup here. Let's see. He said he got his 7 wins. That would put Bad Luck Bears to get his 5th win. We'll see, but anything is possible. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Then we got Gags to Riches versus Laser Sharks. Gags, so he's at the bottom, trying to fight his way back up. Laser Sharks, in the same position. He needs to try to climb back closer to 500 after that loss last week. We'll see what happens with him. Space Antelope, he's up against the Mighty Midgets, the last place team. looks like I think there are a lot of bye week problems this next week or two here for people. So their projections are pretty even in the 130s. Those are pretty low projections, but said Mighty Midgets, who knows? Maybe he'll get another good performance. He needs to try and knock off Space Antelope, who is trying to get his win number 6, which would put him on the playoff door. And then we got Hillbillies on PCP versus Disco. 20-point favorite right now, projection for Hillbillies. He is in second, but Disco, he's trying to fight for his playoff life and maybe get his 5th win. Much like New Gods Mad Titans there, you don't want to drop below 500 in a tough matchup. So who knows what's going to happen here. So yeah, all of these matchups this week are going to be pretty important in terms of shaping the playoff positioning. So some of those guys who are down at the bottom could work their way up a spot or two, while the people at the top, if they can win, that would muddle up the middle a little bit more. Or if they lose, we would put some of those other guys, like, let's see, Space Antelope and, let's see, FC Bahorik in pretty good playoff positioning there. So we already got those 2 spots locked up, essentially. So only 4 more teams are going to get in, while we have at least, let's see, probably at least 6 or 7, maybe 8, if one of those 2 and 6s can go on a winning streak here. So we got 4 spots for about 6 or 7 people here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here these next couple weeks. It could, the Isotopes, Gags to Riches, or the Mighty Midgets pull off a miracle and win out their schedule. 5 win. Could one of those teams possibly go for 5 wins in a row and end up 7-6 and maybe squeak in a playoff spot? That would definitely be an epic comeback, because you can't get much lower than 2-6 and climb back up from that. So, however unlikely, it'll be interesting to see. I think all 3 teams are definitely capable. They've got the firepower to get as difficult. A 5-game winning streak in our league is borderline impossible. It very rarely happens. Maybe like once or twice a year, you'll get someone who goes on a streak like that. So, but anything is possible. Let's take a look at Mighty Midget's team here. He needs Cam Newton to turn things around. He's kind of slumping the past couple weeks ever since you traded for him. Your receiving core kind of underperforming. Some tough spots there. Kamara, good in the flex. Buffalo has been doing surprisingly well for you at defense there. Need your running backs to turn it around a little bit too. So, yeah, Mighty Midgets is going to be tough for you to make that run. How about Gags to Riches here? Let's see. So we know he's got Drew Brees. He's got Drew Brees and the Patriots defense. Those 2 together can be enough to get wins sometimes just by themselves. Between Brees, Kelsey, Patriots defense, Dez Bryant. So you don't have the Patriots defense this week. That kind of hurts. I'm not sure who your other backup D is, but so if you got Drew Brees and the Patriots defense, you're in pretty good position to compete every single week against your opponent. You lost this week because you had pretty much everybody on their bye. So you'll be back with Adrian Peterson, Sterling Shepard, a lot of these guys, Devontae Adams. You traded away Engram for Cooper Kupp. So we'll see what happens there. You got the potential. And of course, the other team is the Isotopes. Potential there, always Carr, Uh, Going back and forth here with the receivers, fighting some injuries and some bye week problems there. Uh, Looks like running backs Aaron Jones and Todd Gurley should be a pretty solid combo the rest of the way. Gronk is off this week, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do there for this week. But the rest of the way should be okay. Depends on who I'm gonna flex from week to week here. Not sure about that yet. Chiefs defense, they're always fairly dependable. So the Isotopes will definitely compete from week to week. As as difficult as that is to say, so it's tough to envision these teams with only 2 wins to roll something together like to suddenly go on a 5-game winning streak here. Basically, have to more than triple their current total here. So it should be a fun week. We're winding down with the regular season here. Week 9 already. I believe, keep in mind, the trade deadline is usually right around Thanksgiving. Is what I usually try to set it for, right around, usually the week before Thanksgiving. Let me take a quick look. November 18 is the trade deadline in our league. So you got, technically, so today's Halloween, so tomorrow's the 1st, so you've got 2.5 weeks there to make any trades that you want before that deadline. And is there anything else that really needs mentioned here? I don't think so. I think that's it. So good luck here in the week coming up. So we got some bye week problems for a lot of guys. And so it looks like some pretty low projections there. So we'll see what happens. But, all right, thanks for watching, and good luck to everyone. We'll see you back here next week. Good luck to everybody, but of course, especially to me. So thanks, guys.